The throne room of the alien palace was silent, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of fear. The walls were made of black stone that glowed faintly, like fire hidden under ice. Tall alien guards, with 4 arms and armor of dark steel, stood on both sides. Their sharp eyes never blinked. The air was heavy, almost alive, and every shadow seemed to breathe. At the center of this great hall stood the throne of the alien queen. It was not just a seat. It was a giant machine, half alive, half metal, built from technology older than memory. It pulsed with blue light as if it had a heartbeat. On that throne, the queen sat, rising slowly as if she had just woken from a long dream. Her armor gleamed under the light. Once, it had been scarred, broken, and marked from battles across galaxies. But now, it was whole again, shining, smooth, every dent gone. The queen's burning red eyes narrowed. A sound came from her throat, deep and terrible. Her voice rolled through the chamber like thunder breaking mountains. Who dared repair my armor? The guards dropped their heads to the floor. None of them spoke. Not even a breath dared escape their mouths. To touch the queen's armor was death. It was forbidden. It was sacred, a symbol of her power. Even her closest generals were never allowed to lay a single finger on it. The queen stood from her throne, towering over everyone. Her height was monstrous, her shadow stretching across the stone floor like a storm cloud. She walked slowly down the steps, the sound of her armored boots echoing through the chamber. Each step was heavy, as if the ground itself feared to break under her. Her voice thundered again. Speak. Which one of you fools touched what was mine? The silence grew thicker. The guards shifted uneasily but kept their heads low. The alien nobles, tall figures with jeweled robes and cold faces, looked at one another with fear. Not one of them dared to answer. Then, the doors of the throne room creaked open. The sound was sharp, like a knife against glass. 2 guards entered, dragging a small figure between them. The figure was thin, weak, and very different from the rest. It was a human. The human's steps were unsteady as the guards pushed him forward. His clothes were simple, stained with oil and dust. His hands shook, but his face held something unusual, not just fear, but also determination. The queen's eyes locked on him. The red glow sharpened like blades. She raised her hand, and the guards froze in place. The hall was still again. The queen lowered her voice, but it was colder now, like ice cracking. A human? You dare enter my throne room? The human did not answer at once. He looked around at the towering aliens, the endless shadows, and then finally up at the queen. His heart was pounding, but he forced his voice to stay steady. I repaired your armor, he said. The hall gasped. The alien nobles hissed like snakes. The guards shifted, ready to strike. For a moment, it felt like the walls themselves were shaking with anger. The queen stepped closer. The air around her seemed to grow heavier, pressing down on the human like invisible chains. Her voice was sharp, almost a whisper, but filled with danger. You admit it. You touched what no one is allowed to touch? Do you wish for death? The human's knees shook, but he did not fall. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the throne room. No, I did not wish for death. I wished to help. The queen froze. Her red eyes glowed brighter. Around her, the aliens whispered in disbelief. A human, one of the weakest species in the galaxy, claimed he helped the queen? Impossible. Unthinkable. The queen tilted her head slowly, studying him like a predator studies its prey. Why? She asked. The word cut through the silence like a blade. The human swallowed, but his voice grew stronger. Because your armor was broken. Because the war is coming. And because without you, this empire will fall. The nobles burst into laughter, cruel and sharp. One shouted, "The insect speaks of war." Another sneered, "Humans know nothing of survival." But the queen did not laugh. She stared at the human in silence. Her eyes searched him, as if trying to see what hid behind his small, fragile body. The silence returned, but now it was different. Not fear, curiosity. The queen leaned down until her shadow covered the human completely. Her voice was low and slow, each word heavy with power. "Tell me, human, do you think you saved me?" The human looked up, his small form trembling under her gaze. His lips moved, and he gave the answer that made the entire throne room fall into stunned silence. "I think I saved us all." The queen's eyes burned brighter, and for the first time, a strange expression crossed her face. Not rage, not scorn, but something rare, something dangerous. Interest. The throne room held its breath. The story had just begun. The throne room was still, yet the silence was no longer the silence of fear alone. It was the silence of shock. The human had spoken words no one dared to speak. "I think I saved us all." Every alien noble glared at him, as if he had insulted the stars themselves. Their eyes burned with hatred, their lips twisted into sharp snarls. One of them, a tall alien lord with silver skin and long claws, stepped forward. "This is blasphemy," the lord shouted. His voice was sharp, like metal tearing. "How dare a weak creature claim to save our queen? Let me crush him where he stands." The queen raised her hand, and the lord froze. No one moved when the queen commanded. She never repeated herself. Her glowing eyes stayed locked on the human. Her voice was calm, but it carried more danger than a scream. "Human, explain." The human's chest rose and fell quickly. He was afraid, anyone could see that. But fear did not control his words. His voice, though trembling, grew steady. "Your armor was broken," he said. "It was cracked from the last battle. Circuits were burnt, plates were weak. You are strong, but without it, your enemies would see weakness. They would strike." The queen listened, her face unreadable. Around her, the nobles hissed, but none dared to interrupt again. The human continued, his eyes moving from the queen to the great throne behind her. "This empire depends on you. You lead them. You hold them together. If you fall, everything falls. So I fixed it. Not to insult you, not to defy your law, but to keep you alive." His words fell into the chamber like stones in a deep well. The echo of truth carried farther than anyone expected. The queen stepped closer, the sound of her armored boots shaking the floor. She towered over the human, her shadow like a giant claw reaching across his body. Her voice dropped low. "You risked your life. For me. For this empire? Why would a human care? Your kind are servants. Slaves. You gain nothing if I live." The human looked at her, and for the first time, his lips curved into a faint, almost sad smile. "You're wrong," he said softly. "I gain everything. Because if you die, my people die too. When the empire falls, humans will be the first to be erased. I will not let that happen." A ripple of disbelief ran through the nobles. Some laughed bitterly, others shook their heads. "Pathetic," one whispered. "Humans cannot change fate," another sneered. But the queen did not laugh. She tilted her head, studying him like a strange puzzle. Her eyes burned brighter, but it was no longer pure anger. There was something else, something rare in her expression. Curiosity. She asked again, slower this time, as if tasting each word. "Why would you, a human, think you are capable of protecting an empire?" The human drew in a sharp breath. His hands trembled, but his voice did not break. "Because strength is not the only way to survive. Power alone cannot save you. Sometimes, survival depends on those who can see what others ignore, who can fix what others abandon. That is what humans do. That is what I do." The hall grew tense again. The nobles hissed, but none dared to challenge the queen's silence. She was still watching him, and her eyes no longer glowed with only rage. Finally, she straightened. Her tall frame rose like a mountain above the human. Her next words came slowly, heavy as falling stone. You are bold, for such a fragile creature. The human bowed his head, but his voice remained strong. I am an engineer. I fix what is broken, even if it kills me. That line struck the chamber like lightning. The nobles were speechless. The guards, who had seen countless wars, shifted uneasily. For the first time, some of them wondered if this human was more dangerous than he appeared. The queen turned, her long cloak sweeping across the floor like a tide of darkness. She walked back toward her throne, but before she sat, she stopped. Without looking at him, she spoke again. If you are so skilled, human, then prove it. The chamber stirred with murmurs. The queen rarely gave chances. Usually, she gave only death. The queen turned her head slightly, her eyes glowing like two burning moons. There is an ancient warship in my vaults. My lords have tried to repair it. They have failed. If you succeed where they could not, then perhaps you are more than an insect. If you fail, you will die slowly. The nobles laughed again, cruel and sharp. To them, this was no chance. This was a slow execution. No human could repair a ship older than empires, a ship that alien masters had failed to awaken. But the human raised his head. His face was pale, his body still shaking, but his voice came out with steady fire. I accept. The throne room exploded with whispers. Madness, foolishness, or courage. None could decide. The queen lowered herself onto her throne again, her voice calm and final. Then let us see if you are truly a savior, or just another broken tool. The human stood alone in the middle of the throne room. Every alien eye was upon him. Some looked with hatred, some with pity, and a few, only a few, with curiosity. He bowed his head once, not in weakness, but in silent promise. Then the guards led him away, toward the vaults where the ancient warship slept. The queen's glowing eyes followed him as the doors closed. For the first time in many years, she felt something strange. Not fear, not rage, expectation. And deep within her mind, a dangerous thought whispered. What if the human succeeds? The vaults of the alien palace were older than memory itself. Built deep under the mountain, carved into black stone, they smelled of dust, oil, and ancient secrets. Few had ever entered these halls. Those who did often never returned. At the far end of the vault stood the queen's prize, the ancient warship. It was huge, filling the chamber like a sleeping beast. Its surface was scarred, its wings broken, its engines silent. Strange blue veins ran across its dark metal body, glowing faintly like dying embers. For centuries, alien lords and master engineers had tried to awaken it. All had failed. Some burned alive in its sparks. Others vanished when they touched its core. The ship rejected them all. To the aliens, it was cursed. And now, a human stood before it. The guards who escorted him laughed under their breath. He will last 1 hour, one muttered. More like 1 minute, another said. The human ignored them. His eyes were fixed on the warship. To others, it was a monster. To him, it was a puzzle. He took a deep breath, then stepped forward. The floor trembled under his small boots. The alien guards stayed behind, watching with cruel smiles. They expected screams soon. The human placed his hand gently on the cold metal surface. At first, nothing happened. Then the ship shivered, a low hum rising from its belly. Sparks crawled across its body like lightning searching for prey. The guards stiffened, waiting for the explosion. But the human did not step back. His hand stayed firm. His voice, low but steady, whispered into the silence. You're not broken. You're just waiting. The ship's hum grew louder, almost like it was listening. The human opened his small bag. Inside were simple tools, wires, a worn-out scanner, a torch, and a set of human-made instruments that looked primitive compared to alien machines. The guards laughed again. With toys like these, he thinks he can fix a warship, one sneered. But the human ignored them. He crawled under the ship, checking the engines. He traced the glowing veins with his scanner, his fingers running across the cracks. His eyes were sharp, focused, alive. Hours passed. The guards grew bored, leaning against the walls, but the human never stopped moving. Sweat covered his face. His hands were black with dust and grease. Yet his eyes shone with something the aliens had never seen before. Human determination. Finally, he pulled himself up, standing before the ship's silent heart, the core chamber. It pulsed faintly, like a weak heartbeat. Alien engineers had forced it open before, trying to command it. The ship always burned them. The human did not force it. Instead, he sat in front of it. He whispered again. "You're old. You've seen too many wars. That's why you're afraid. You think everyone will just use you and break you again. But I don't want to use you. I just want to fix you." The guards stared at each other. Was the human talking to the ship? Madness. But then, the core pulsed brighter. The hum grew stronger. The human smiled faintly. He opened his tools and began to work. Not with violence. Not with commands. But with patience. He replaced wires carefully, polished damaged circuits, and built new connections with whatever he had. Where alien science saw failure, human creativity found solutions. He used parts in ways no alien would think of, twisting weakness into strength. Little by little, the ship responded. The glowing veins lit up one by one, like stars returning to the night sky. The engines rumbled, dust falling from the ceiling as the vault shook. The guards leapt to their feet, their jaws dropping. It cannot be," one whispered. "He's waking it," another muttered. The human stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow. His heart raced, but his eyes burned with quiet fire. The warship's eyes, two great blue lights at the front, flickered open. A deep, powerful voice echoed inside the vault, though no mouth spoke it. "Who calls me?" The guards froze. The ship was alive. After centuries of silence, it spoke again. The human took a step forward. His small frame looked even smaller against the glowing giant. But his voice was steady. "I am no master. I am no lord. I am just an engineer. I don't call you to fight. I don't call you to serve. I only brought you back because you deserve to live again." The ship rumbled, its voice filled with surprise. Strange words, from a fragile one. The human nodded. "Maybe. But sometimes the fragile ones see things the powerful ignore." The ship fell silent. Then, with a roar that shook the vault, its engines ignited. The floor trembled, the walls groaned, and blue fire burned bright. The ancient warship was alive. The guards dropped to their knees in shock. Their eyes were wide, their mouths open, but no words came. They had seen lords fail. They had seen masters burn. Yet a human, a single human, had done the impossible. The vault doors opened. The alien queen stepped inside, her tall figure framed by the glowing fire of the awakened ship. Her red eyes scanned the chamber, then locked on the human. The guards bowed instantly. The human stood, covered in dust and sweat, his tools scattered around him. The queen's voice was calm, but it carried the weight of a storm. "All my lords failed. All my masters failed. Yet you, a human, have done what they could not." She stepped closer, her shadow covering him. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then her voice cut through the silence. "Tell me, human, what are you?" The human lifted his head. His voice was quiet, but it carried like thunder. "I am what you never expected. I am proof that humans are more than slaves." The queen's burning eyes narrowed. For the first time in centuries, the great alien queen felt something she never thought she would feel again. Uncertainty. And deep within her heart, a dangerous thought whispered louder. What if this human is more dangerous than all my enemies combined? The warship's engines roared like thunder inside the vault. The ancient machine, silent for centuries, was alive again. Blue flames burned from its wings, and its core glowed like a star trapped in metal. The guards knelt in disbelief, covering their faces from the blinding light. The alien queen stood at the entrance, her tall figure unmoving. Her red eyes glowed brighter as she studied the scene. A human, a weak, fragile creature, had awakened the greatest treasure of her empire. Slowly, the queen stepped forward. Her boots struck the stone floor with sharp echoes. Every sound carried power. The guards bowed lower, afraid to even breathe. The human, however, did not kneel. He stood before the ship, his body shaking with exhaustion, but his head held high. The queen stopped in front of him. The fire from the ship cast shadows across her armor, making her look like a goddess of war. Her voice was calm, but it carried danger in every word. "Tell me, human, how did you succeed where my lords failed?" The human wiped sweat from his forehead, his chest rising and falling fast. His tools were scattered at his feet, some broken, some glowing faintly from overuse. But his eyes held a quiet fire. "I did not command the ship," he said. "I listened to it. You all tried to force it awake, like a master waking a slave. But it is not a slave. It is alive. It wanted respect, not chains. So I gave it patience and care." The queen's eyes narrowed. Her lords shifted uncomfortably, their faces twisted with disbelief. To them, the idea that a human could understand what they could not was an insult. One noble stepped forward, his voice sharp with rage. "This is lies. Tricks. The ship only obeyed by chance. He cannot claim wisdom greater than ours." The queen turned her burning gaze on the noble. He froze instantly, his words dying in his throat. None spoke again. The queen looked back at the human. Her voice was soft now, almost curious. "You speak of machines as if they were people. Do you truly believe that?" The human nodded. "Yes. Everything that is built remembers. A machine remembers the hands that shaped it, the voices that used it, the battles it survived. If you treat it only as a tool, it will break. If you respect it, it may choose to live again." The queen studied him in silence. For the first time, she did not see just a fragile creature. She saw something else, a kind of strength her people did not understand. The warship's voice rumbled again, shaking the chamber. "This one speaks truth. He touched me with care, not greed. That is why I live again." Gasps filled the vault. The ship itself had spoken, and it confirmed the human's words. The nobles bowed their heads, ashamed and furious. The guards dared not lift their eyes. The queen raised her chin, her face unreadable. She turned slowly, her cloak sweeping across the floor like a shadow of night. "The throne room," she said at last. "Bring him back to the throne room." The guards obeyed. The throne room was crowded when the human returned. Word of his success had spread quickly. Alien lords, generals and nobles had gathered, their eyes filled with curiosity and hate. The human walked between rows of towering figures, their whispers cutting through the air like knives. "Impossible. A trick. He will die soon enough." The queen sat on her throne, waiting. Her armor shone with the same strange perfection the human had given it. Beside her stood her generals, their weapons gleaming, their faces carved with arrogance. The human was brought to the center of the hall. He stood small and tired, his hands still stained with grease and ash. Yet his presence filled the chamber in a way none expected. The queen leaned forward, her glowing eyes fixed on him. "You awakened my warship. You claim to understand machines better than my lords. Tell me, human, what do you want as your reward?" The hall grew silent. Everyone leaned closer. A human asked by the queen herself what he desired. It was madness. The human lifted his head. His voice was quiet, but every word echoed through the chamber. "I do not want gold. I do not want rank. I want only one thing. I want respect for my people." The hall exploded with laughter. Nobles bent over, clutching their sides, their sharp teeth flashing. The generals sneered. Respect. For humans. The weakest race in the galaxy? Unthinkable. But the queen did not laugh. She raised her hand, and the chamber fell silent. Her voice was slow, careful. Respect is not given. It is earned. You have earned my curiosity, human, but not yet my respect. If you want it, you must prove yourself again. Her words rang like judgment. The hall trembled with anticipation. The queen rose from her throne, her tall frame casting a long shadow across the chamber. She stepped down, stopping only inches from the human. Her burning eyes locked with his, searching for weakness. "Tomorrow," she said, her voice deep and final, "you will join me in the field of war. Not as a soldier but as my engineer. You will keep my armor alive as I fight. If you succeed, your people may earn their place. If you fail—" She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that only he could hear. "Then I will crush you myself." The human's heart pounded in his chest. Sweat ran down his back. But his voice did not break. "I accept." The chamber gasped. No hesitation. No begging. Only acceptance. The queen studied him for a long moment. Then she turned away, her cloak trailing behind her like the wing of a dragon. "Prepare him," she commanded. The guards led the human away once more. This time, the chamber was filled not with laughter, but with whispers of unease. The nobles could not explain what they had seen. A human, standing face to face with their queen, and not breaking. As the doors closed, the queen sat again on her throne. But her eyes lingered on the place where the human had stood. For the first time in her reign, doubt whispered inside her mind. He is not strong. He is not powerful. But why does he not break? And with that thought came another, darker one. What if this human is not just a tool, but a threat? The battlefield stretched like a wound across the land. The sky was black with storm clouds, and fire burned in the distance. Alien armies waited in formation, their weapons glowing, their war cries echoing like thunder. The queen stood at the front, her armor gleaming like a star forged from steel. Beside her, smaller than everyone, stood the human engineer. He carried no weapon, no shield, only his worn bag of tools. The alien generals sneered at him, their voices sharp with mockery. "This insect will not last a moment. He will hide when the first strike comes." But the queen silenced them with a single glance. Her red eyes burned brighter than the fire behind her. The enemy appeared on the horizon, a rival empire, tall warriors with jagged armor and cruel machines. Their war horns screamed across the battlefield. The ground shook as their armies advanced. The queen raised her sword. The air trembled around her as she stepped forward, her cloak whipping in the wind. Her voice rang like thunder. "For the Empire!" Her soldiers roared in answer. The battle began. The first clash was brutal. Blades rang, plasma fire tore the air, and the sky filled with smoke. The queen fought like a storm-given flesh, her blade cutting through enemies, her armor shining with every strike. But as the battle raged, her enemies grew more desperate. They unleashed massive war machines, giant beasts of steel with cannons that could tear mountains apart. The queen fought them head-on, but the strain on her armor was immense. Sparks danced across her chest plate, circuits flickered, and joints began to slow. The human, standing behind the lines, saw it all. His heart raced. If her armor failed, she would fall, and the Empire would fall with her. He ran forward, dodging blasts, weaving between towering soldiers. Aliens cursed at him, some tried to drag him back, but he slipped past them all. His small frame moved where giants could not. He reached the queen's side just as her shoulder plate cracked under a heavy blow. Sparks burst across her arm. She staggered for a moment. The human shouted, his voice sharp. "Hold still." The queen turned her burning gaze on him. Even in the chaos of battle, she wanted to strike him down for daring to order her. But then another cannon blast shook the ground, nearly knocking her off her feet. She hesitated. The human was already at work. He ripped open a side panel of her armor, his hands moving faster than thought. Wires sparked, circuits screamed, but he did not stop. The Queen's voice thundered over the clash of battle. "If you fail, human, we both die." "I won't fail," he shouted back. His hands were cut and burned, but his focus never broke. He patched lines with scraps, rerouted power, and welded plates with sparks flying in his face. The armor roared back to life, brighter and stronger. The Queen felt the surge of energy flood her body, her blade blazing with renewed strength. She swung it in a great arc, cutting down 3 war machines in a single strike. Her enemies fell back in fear. Her soldiers roared louder than before. The tide of battle turned. The Queen fought like fire itself, and the human followed her through the chaos, repairing her armor again and again, each time faster, braver, more reckless. He was burned, bruised, and bloodied, yet he never stopped. By nightfall, the battlefield was silent. The enemy had fled, leaving broken machines and silence behind them. The Queen stood tall, her armor glowing like a sun. Around her, her soldiers bowed in victory. And there, beside her, the human engineer collapsed to his knees, his body shaking from exhaustion. The Queen looked down at him. For the first time, her face softened, not with weakness, but with something none had seen in her for centuries. Respect. She spoke, her voice lower than before, but still carrying across the field. You are more than a slave. More than an insect. You are an engineer, and without you, I would have fallen. Her words rippled through her army. Shock, disbelief, and then silence. The soldiers who once mocked him now stared at him with something they had never given a human before. Recognition. The human looked up at the Queen, his face pale, his body weak, but his eyes burning. "I told you," he whispered. "Humans are more than you believe." The Queen extended her armored hand. Slowly, the human took it, and she pulled him to his feet. She turned to her army, her voice thunderous. "This human saved your queen. This human saved your empire. From this day forward, he is no slave. He is my royal engineer." The soldiers bowed deeply. The nobles watching from afar clenched their teeth, their pride shattered, but none dared to speak against her. The Queen looked at the human once more. Her burning eyes softened for only a moment. But deep inside, another thought whispered. "He is dangerous. Too dangerous. He fixed my armor. He awakened my warship. He kept me alive on the battlefield. If one human can do this, what could all humans become?" The thought lingered like a shadow across her mind. And as the human stood at her side, weak but unbroken, the Queen knew the truth. This was not the end. It was the beginning. The beginning of something that could one day challenge even her throne.